have some bonus content for those of you who are looking to learn a little bit more about how to muscle test yourself. I'm going to give you a short overview with some slides here with some key points, and then I'm going to do a separate video where I'm on screen demonstrating these techniques and you can follow along with me. So let's start with a little bit of background on muscle testing, what it is and how it works. First of all, there's some confusion out there, I think, about this one in terms of what are we doing and what are we not doing here. Muscle testing is not a psychic tool or skill by any means. It's literally a motor skill that anybody can be trained in how to do and anybody can learn. What we're looking at is an autonomic nervous system response interpretation in the body. So the body has changes in energy that are associated with different ideas and different health stressors. And when we muscle test, we're interpreting nerve impulses out in the hands usually, or in other places, depending where we're testing. But we're interpreting changes in muscle tension, which are literally connected back to our nervous system that goes up to the brain and the central and kind of autonomic nervous system areas. So we're interpreting something out at the extremity, usually at the muscle, maybe at the finger, the hand, or the arm, but it's all connected back to the nervous system. And that's what we're using to determine how the subconscious feels about a particular idea, a particular health stressor, a particular product, etc. This does take practice. It's not a skill that you can usually pick up overnight. Now, some people will start and right away they just have a very clear yes or no response with different types of muscle testing. There's a lot of different strategies and ways to test, and most people are going to find one or two that they really like, and the rest might feel confusing or hard to interpret. So it really takes some practice and some trial and error to figure out which strategies feel easiest for you to interpret. The changes in muscle tension are subtle. So at first, that also takes practice, particularly if you're used to other types of muscle testing. For example, I was trained as a physical therapist, and when we do muscle testing in clinic, we're using quite a bit of pressure to test the strength of people, to test the muscle activation. This is an entirely different concept. This is very light pressure, light touch to kind of have somebody match resistance to determine the response. So it just takes practice, like any skill, to recognize these subtle shifts. One of the ways people use this is they'll hold up a toxin vial to the body, and if the body recognizes on the subconscious level that whatever is in that concentrate held up to it is something that is currently stressing it out or causing inflammation in the body, it's going to test weak. So if we're in the clinic and we're doing an arm test, the arm's going to drop to the side, it's going to get weak. If you hold up something, however, let's say a supplement, medication, a type of food that the body wants, it's going to test strong. That arm is going to be able to hold itself up and maintain that tension. So in general, the rule of thumb is a yes response is strong and a no response is weak. Here are some examples of self-muscle testing that can be useful. So I'm not going to teach you how to test other people's arms and test and interpret other people's responses. That's really beyond the scope of this demo. That if you do want to seek that out, there are many wonderful organizations that train you in how to muscle test others as a clinical tool and as a practitioner. So if you are a practitioner, that might be something to look into. But in general, I want you to just play with some of these strategies, and I'm going to do a demonstration of these on screen soon so you can see what each one is and what it looks like in practice. Before you muscle test yourself, you want to start by maybe a couple of breaths, getting yourself centered and grounded, because that's going to help you interpret the response a little bit easier. There's also a balancing step where you're going to check to make sure that you're balanced properly in order to interpret the responses properly. And we can do this in a couple of different ways. There's a point on the forehead where, depending on whether the palm of the hand or the back of the hand is contacting the forehead, it's going to impact the muscle response. So we use that to kind of check at the beginning, make sure the tester is hydrated enough and grounded enough to do the muscle testing. We might also do a test out loud, like a name test, and I'll show you that in the video. If your balancing test is off, I'm also going to show you a couple of ways to change your energy or change your body's receptiveness to these responses. And then once this balance check at the beginning is normal, you would begin testing whatever it is you're wanting to test that day. It's helpful to practice with random objects and things that don't really matter at first. Things that are pretty obvious, like facts versus lies. Even statements like, I live in Mexico versus I live in blank, wherever you actually live. So something that's very true and something that's very false can help you start to tease out the difference between that strong and weak muscle response. Remember, strong is a yes, weak is a no. So if you're saying where you live, you should have a strong response in that muscle test. If you're saying that you live elsewhere, you're going to have a weak response, presuming your system is balanced for the testing. You can also do this with food items. People will go to the grocery store and they'll grab like some processed junk and then they'll muscle test next to like a piece of fruit or something that's more natural and see which one is strong. And ideally, the thing that the body wants will be strong and the thing that's processed or maybe toxic or harmful is generally going to test weak. So you can kind of start to compare products and things. And some people will even use this to help make decisions at the store if they're trying to decide between two different types of foods, for example, or their products. You could also do this with something at home, like if you have some, artificial sweetener versus a natural form of sweetener like honey or dates. You could kind of compare the two and just kind of play with that a little bit as you're learning how to muscle test with things that are really obvious yes and no's. Patience is helpful here. It takes time and practice. So don't be too hard on yourself if you're not getting it right away. Commit to taking your time with it, practicing, figure out which of the muscle testing strategies feels easiest for you to do, and focus on that and just practice, practice, practice. If you're trying to do muscle testing for family members or perhaps a spouse or housemates or other people that you are close to, it can be challenging to interpret the results, more challenging than just generally testing things. So I would suggest you focus on practicing on yourself at first and don't worry about other people in the equation. And then if you would like to use this professionally on other people, seek out a muscle testing workshop weekend through different organizations. My favorite organization for this is Cellcore. They have a really wonderful, I think it's a 2 or 3 day workshop, and they offer it at different levels. So you can learn how to do this in person, which I think is a great tool. But for now, we're going to play with some ways to test yourself and see what you think. So stay tuned for the next video for more help on this.